Welcome, everyone. We're so thrilled that you've joined us this afternoon to learn about the Fulbright US Student Program, and in particular, the Independent Research Grants. It was exciting to see the people who were registered from both of our institutions for this webinar, some names that we know really well and some that are new to us. So we look forward to talking with all of you further. I'm Christine Overstreet. I'm the Director of Fellowships at Amherst College, where I've worked since 2016. I am an alum of Mount Holyoke, but I have with me today on my porch where I'm broadcasting my Amherst mammoth.
Hello everyone, and I'm Ryan Lewis. I'm the National Fellowships Advisor at Mount Holyoke College. There's the Mount Holyoke lion right there. I've been at Mount Holyoke since 2016, and I actually I've been working with Christine for a number of years while here in the Valley, and so really excited to be able to put this together. I am broadcasting from my home in South Hadley, and in the case that they decide to join us, I'm here with my daughter Quinn, who is 9.
Hello, people.
My dog Larry, who's right now here, he might pop up over now and again, and my cat Maddie, who knows where she is, but she might actually stand right here at some point. So, welcome.
So we have about an hour planned for the webinar, and we'd like to give you an overview of what you can expect during that hour. So here we go. We're going to talk about the Fulbright Mission and this whole structure of the program, as well as the history of our two institutions with the Fulbright program in a general way. And then we'll focus on the different kinds of grants, focusing rather on the independent research grant and what some students from both of our institutions have done through this kind of grant.
Yes. We're also going to talk about this big, bold national program, the US Student Fulbright program, which is one of many opportunities through the Fulbright umbrella. We're going to focus specifically on that. We're going to talk about project design, especially as it relates to independent research projects. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about how to generate ideas and how you could utilize the advisors at your institutions to help you further refine and revise those ideas.
We'll delve into what are the important components to consider when putting together a research grant, and then how to find useful resources, both on the Fulbright website and other sites that will help you put together your project and make sure that it makes sense in the Fulbright universe.
Right. And then lastly, we'll talk about the timelines, an ideal timeline, but then very specific timelines. Both at Mount Holyoke and at Amherst, there are college deadlines, and then these are usually before the national deadlines for various reasons, and we'll talk about that later, and then also what happens after.
So let's get started. First of all, the Fulbright Mission. Well, the Fulbright program began in 1945 when Senator J. William Fulbright proposed a bill in Congress that called for the use of surplus property from World War II to fund the promotion of international goodwill through the exchange of students in the fields of education, culture, and science. And then President Truman signed the bill into law, and Congress launched the Fulbright program. The reason we highlight and even want you to start thinking about the mission first thing is because for any kind of grant that you're applying to, anything that you are requesting funding for, you want to make sure that you clearly show that your project aligns fully with their mission. They're much more likely to fund you if it does. So keep front and center, tattoo it on your heart. The mission of the Fulbright program is to foster mutual understanding between nations, to advance knowledge across communities, and to improve lives around the world. So the program is a Department of State program in the US government, specifically under the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, and it's run by the Institute of International Education. It's administered binationally, so there are people involved in the US as well as in the destination countries who are involved in the selection and execution of the program worldwide.
You might ask how our institutions have fared in the US Student Fulbright program. Well, we're both happy to say that over the last few years, especially this past year, both Amherst and Mount Holyoke College have been named as top producers, which basically means that students at our colleges have really competitive chances of winning Fulbrights, whether it's the independent research grant, a graduate study grant, or an English teaching assistantship. Over the last 4 years, since the class of 2017, 24 Mount Holyoke students have won Fulbrights. We have an average of 40% success rate. Those are those who apply and those who win. And this past year, we just found out 8 of our students have been offered Fulbrights. We have 1 alternate waiting, and this year we did okay, 47% success rate.
It's really exciting. And at AC, we've had Fulbright winners since 1948. So since the very beginning of the program, 320, in fact, since that time. This year, we have 11 winners so far with 3 alternates, and we're still waiting to hear from 1 country. In any given year, we might have between 30 and at the most, we had 54 one year students applying for the Fulbright program. And our number of winners has ranged since I've been at the college between 9 or 10 and 16. So there's a lot of variation from year to year, but what we want you to take away from this is overall institutional success for both of our colleges. The numbers that we just talked about represent the 3 different types of grant, the 3 different major types of Fulbright grants that exist. You've probably heard about the one called the English Teaching Assistantship, since it represents the bulk of awards that are given. In any given year, Fulbright will offer around 2,000 awards, and 1,250 of them typically go to English teaching assistants in about 75 different countries. That's not the one we're talking about today. We'll talk about that in the webinar on Thursday, but we just wanted to alert you that this one exists.
The next type of grant available through the US Student Program is a graduate study. Sometimes you'll hear it called a study award. Sometimes you'll hear it called a partnership award. These types of grants are kind of allied to the independent research projects, which we're focusing on today. But the one main difference is that you're going to be enrolled in a university for a degree program, a degree-seeking program. It's kind of a minor difference. In some places around the world, you'll need to put up a research project that will be front and center of your graduate degree. And that is akin to what we're talking about today, really focused on research project design. But I did want to alert you to those. In some countries, like the United Kingdom, for example, we have a lot of students in Mount Holyoke who are interested in pursuing Fulbrights to the UK. Most of the, or all of the awards available are geared towards these partnership awards, these graduate study awards.
Absolutely, and a lot of Amherst students are also interested in those. We're focusing, as you know, on the independent research projects today, and between the study grants and the independent research projects and some projects that sort of blend the two, these represent about 950 of the grants that Fulbright awards in any given year, but they're available in about 140 different countries. So they're available in more countries than ETA opportunities are. The independent research project in a nutshell is an academic project of your design that you plan to carry out in another country. And we'd like to give you some examples of those from both of our colleges so that you can get a sense of the breadth and the range and the fields of study that these projects can come from, and how the projects might be different depending on the field or academic division that they're in. So let's get started on those.
First example is an example from Mount Holyoke College. This is a favorite story of mine. I won't tell too much of it. Christine tells me sometimes I get going on a story and I can last on it for too long. But this is Rosalind LeBon, who graduated in 2018. Rosalind was an English major and a Chinese minor, but applied for a Fulbright US student grant independent study to Nicaragua. not really exactly utilizing her, her major or minor fields of study, but rather a long-term interest in literature, and then also a long-term study of Spanish language. She was proficient, if not fluent, in Spanish. And really what I wanted to focus on here is that Rosalind had an experiential internship to Nicaragua between her sophomore and junior year during that rising junior summer. And she had such a great time working with Podcasts for Peace, started by a Mount Holyoke alumna, that she wanted to go back. And so we worked on this project based on this Link-funded internship experience, utilizing her Spanish expertise, and she gets this project funded to Nicaragua. I said Guatemala maybe, or I didn't say Guatemala. What actually happened in the course of her Fulbright year, and this is one of the interesting things about the Fulbright program, is that it's flexible. She gets the grant offer to go to Nicaragua. Nicaragua goes through a period of social and political unrest during the summer in which she's going to Nicaragua. But the Fulbright program likes her project so much, they invite her to reimagine it in Guatemala if she so chooses. She chooses, and she gets to be a Fulbright in Guatemala.
Such a great story. And I'd like to tell you one too about an AC student, Joshua Farrar, who graduated in 2018. Joshua's project focused on the effects of New Zealand's 1996 switch to a proportional representation electoral system. So his project grew quite directly out of one of his majors, which was political science, and several government-related internships that he had in DC, and his very dedicated work with the Roosevelt Institute on campus. And I know there are students from both campuses involved in Roosevelt's Institute. Maybe some of you here are. So he became interested in the structure of election systems in democracies around the world, and had discovered through his studies that New Zealand had done something really unusual, in fact, unique in the world. And he wanted to go and study that. Joshua had not ever been to New Zealand. In fact, his study abroad occurred at Oxford. So he had no relationship with New Zealand prior to his discovery and understanding of what had happened there. But he was bold, and he made contacts with people in New Zealand through cold calls, just reaching out to people that he found online, government officials, faculty members, and others who could help him and give him information that he needed as he designed his project.
Excellent. I like the idea of being bold. One of the things that Christine and I sometimes talk about is hustle, how much you hustle in these particular Fulbright bids. The next student we wanted to share is Dinari Yazid, graduated in 2019. Dinari was an anthropology and politics double major, really interested in development studies, economic development, what have you. What I wanted to draw attention to in Dinari's case is really her project grows out of sort of her desire to develop her methodological expertise as an anthropologist. She was really captivated by field work, really enjoyed a summer research assistantship that she had had in Africa, in Ghana, doing analysis and interviewing field work with a professor who was doing research in Ghana. Does this, and then her junior year goes to Samoa. And really falls in love with the island nation, falls in love with the culture and the people of Samoa. And so wants to develop her anthropological expertise, fieldwork, methodology, and wants to go back to Samoa, wants to utilize her social networks that she created while a junior abroad and sort of expand that and kind of do both the best of both worlds, so to speak, kind of reinforcing and shoring up a social bridge that she had created, connecting with people in Samoa, and then also trying to build upon her methodological expertise by putting together an independent research project. And really, she's able to leverage these ties, puts together a fantastic research project, and spends a year, 3/4 of a year in Samoa.
So cool. Such a great project. The last one we want to talk about is Tamal Hossein. Tamal Hossein is an alum of Amherst 2017, and Tamal's a second-generation American whose musical world really exploded when he got to Amherst and was exposed to genres of music that he really had never known anything about because his family had really focused on their own heritage and the music that was associated with that. So his world expanded tremendously when he got to Amherst. He even studied abroad in Vienna, Austria. But for his Fulbright project, he wanted to go back to his roots. And often students applying for a Fulbright do think in terms of returning to the country that their ancestors came from. It's a lovely impulse. For Fulbright, you have to also have an educational purpose. Your project has to make sense apart from the fact that you have heritage there. But Tamal was able to sort of marry all of these things. So his project aim was to analyze field recordings of Bengali folk musicians and then compare them to recordings of Hindustani classical compositions in West Bengal, India. So he had an academic purpose. He was contributing to scholarly literature on this topic, but he also had a cultural and community-based interest. He really wanted to elevate opportunities for folk musicians who he felt their contributions had been minimized and not considered as important as those of classical composers. So part of his aim in his Fulbright year was to do that while generating fresh musicological insights for the scholarly community. Now, Tamal grew up speaking Bengali, or Bangla, as it's also called, proficiently, but he couldn't read and write it as well as he could speak it. He applied for an additional sort of piggyback grant that can go along with a Fulbright research grant for some countries and some languages. It's called the Critical Language Enhancement Award. Tamal applied for that and won that grant as well, and that would enable him to more adeptly examine musical texts as part of his project. So as you can see, projects can be from any field of study, and we've only touched on 4 out of the many, many that there are, as long as there is an educational and cultural focus to them. And then just one more point we want to make about research grants and study. Oops.
Right. Yeah. And that is really the difference, again, between the research and study grant. And it's really kind of comes down to what we think is an essential point, and that is whether or not you're enrolling in a degree program or whether you are you're not enrolled. I like to talk about the fact that the independent research project grant puts you in the captain's chair, that you're the captain of your own ship with this proposal, with this project. You're the person in charge of all of it, versus taking a class or taking a course of study at a university that is set for you, you're putting together a research project at the university with the help and supervisory capability of the faculty there, and that at the end of it you're going to get a degree. So that's really the distinction here. And that's what we're really kind of focused on today. So far we've sort of talked a little bit about the structure of the program, some general overall history, mission points about the program. We've given you some examples. There's questions coming in. Probably feeling like, ooh, where do I start? What am I to do with all this? So you might feel a little bit overwhelmed. This is really a good time, this sort of springtime, moving into your rising, for many of you, a rising senior summer. This is a good time to start thinking about and working on some ideas, working on some questions, following the questions as it relates to the Fulbright program. And that's why we're here. One of the because Christine and I have been putting this webinar together at home over the last few weeks, it has been a really great way to kind of meld home and our profession together. And this is something my daughter, Quinn, decided to add to our presentation. This is Cam. Cam's going to help us for the rest of the presentation. Cam is a a kind of typical student at either Amherst or Mount Holyoke. And we're going to utilize CAM as a way to animate the conversation on kind of a hypothetical situation, independent research situation. So, hi Cam, everybody wave.
Hi Cam.
All right. So where does CAM get ideas for their project? Well, one of the things that we like to do when we start working with you is to talk about what you're interested in. What are your academic questions? You know, if you are working on a thesis, what is your thesis about? What are you reading in class, outside of class, for your research projects, for your research papers? Things that you might know about as it relates to your field, your discipline, you know, the projects, the intellectual projects you're on. And then also if you have an interest in a country, what do you know about what's happening in that country, especially as it relates to the discipline or the research that you're doing? Where can you find information about that country? These are things that we would want to talk with you about.
Yeah, and some of these projects come directly from an experience or something you learned when you were studying abroad. They can come from all different areas of your life. Some of them are even drawn from activities you've done outside the classroom. So the ideas for a project can come from a lot of different places. But once you have an idea for a project, then what we like to do and need to do and you need to do is think about how to make that compelling to the Fulbright reviewers. And we've put together a number of different things for you to think about as you and we work together on designing your project over the summer. So the way we like to think of it is what will make CAM's research project fly? And the first thing that we will help you work toward doing is to hone your topic from a topic to a specific aim or research objective. So much like when you're writing a paper, you want to think about narrowing down what your question is. What is it you're trying to answer? So for instance, if CAM were doing Joshua Farrar's project, the one that was in New Zealand, the topic might be the electoral system in New Zealand compared to the one in the US. So that's a topic. But in order to articulate to Fulbright why they need to fund you to do this project, we'll need to narrow it down. So a thesis for that project might be, I want to examine whether New Zealand's election legislating has become less partisan and restrictive since its 1996 switch to mixed member proportional representation. So there's something you're trying to discover, something that you're trying to find out. Once you figure out that aim, you want to devise a fitting methodology. And that word fitting has sort of two senses to it. First of all, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, it needs to actually fit the discipline that you're in and the question you're trying to answer. So if you're trying to understand something about protein folding, you won't necessarily be conducting interviews. But if you're trying to do what Joshua did and what Cam might do, you would need to do archival research. You'd look at newspapers. You'd mine data from polling records. You would interview government officials. So the methodology needs to fit the question. It also, and this gets back to the questions we had earlier, it needs to fit what you're able to do, what you're equipped to do. Reviewers will look for things like someone is proposing a social science-oriented research project. They'll look for a research methods class on that person's transcript, or maybe a summer internship where they did that kind of research and understand that if you do interviews, you have to code them, you have to understand how to analyze them. It's not just a matter of asking questions and thinking, oh, that's interesting.
That's right. The other thing is another sort of key piece of putting together these research proposals. One of the components of an application is that you have a 2-page research proposal, and the research proposal needs to be feasible and reasonable for you. So a lot of questions, you know, have come in and things that I'm remembering from past conversations. It's really about, you know, your ability and your capacity to do the research that you're putting forward. So, you know, what are your requisite skills for doing, you know, field work, interviews, coding, analysis, etc. You don't want to you may not want to put together a proposal like that if you don't have a lot of experience doing it, or if you don't expect to get experience between application time and doing the grant. So thinking about what that might mean. And then also thinking about, what kind of time that you have between now and then, again, presenting the proposal, then getting the grant, to put into your schedule. So for example, if your country is asking you for advanced language skills, and right now you probably know that you're clocking in at an intermediate language skills, do you have time and capacity in your schedule between now and then to add that language? So these are things that we would talk about with CAM. Also, when you're putting together a research proposal, you want to think about flexibility. Are you cementing yourself to a particular research group, a particular research lab, a particular town in country in which only in this place can you do this kind of research? That might make a difference to a reviewer versus something like, this is where I'm going to anchor myself. I might also look in this place and this place. Do you have the capacity to move around the community, the city, the country? You have a chance to think about these things in the design process. Sometimes greater flexibility can be your ally.
So true. Tied to those things is this question of an affiliation. We've alluded to this a little bit. An affiliation is a person who's attached to an institution, typically a university, but it could also be a research center or a museum or a library or a nonprofit organization that is in the destination country and is willing to be a touch point or a resource for you as you execute your project. This person will not likely be as closely allied with you as, say, your thesis advisor, your senior thesis advisor, although if you're doing hard science, you may see that person every day. But this will be a person who can say, yes, this project makes sense in our country. It makes sense in terms of this discipline, a discipline that the affiliate also shares with you. And they're just putting their stamp of approval on it, that they welcome you to the country and they'll help you get situated and get the resources that you need when you're there. And then finally, your research project needs to really be connected, not only to an institution in the community, but also, again, to the mission of the Fulbright program overall. So it needs to foster in some way educational and cultural exchange, mutual understanding between countries. It's wonderful if it can somehow benefit the local community in some way. And it's imperative that you show that you actually need to be there. We're all doing everything remotely right now. But if I can do a Fulbright project from my porch, I'm not going to get funded because I have to show that I actually need to be on the ground. So that's a final piece to think about when you're putting together a proposal.
Right. So like Cam, one of the things that we would, again, encourage you to do is come see us. These are ways in which you can make appointments with us. Well, actually, we don't come see each other right now, do we? Be Zoom or phone calls or what have you. But nonetheless, both of us have the capacity to work with you and want to work with you. So if you go to Amherst College's website or Fellowships in Holyoke's website, there are ways to make an appointment with us.
We're going to go live now to the Fulbright website, and Ryan's going to take over the screen. So this will just take a second.
A second here. Okay. There we are.
All right.
Can you see us, Christine?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, good. Great. So we wanted to quickly show you a number of places where you can access information about the Fulbright program. The Fulbright US Student Program is a very large program. They give upwards of 2,500 awards. Is that what you said earlier, Christine? Something like that.
Yeah, a little over 2,000 for sure.
2,000 awards. And so there's a lot of information out there to support the work that goes into creating this big project. But we wanted to draw your attention to a number of certain places that we sort of work with on a fairly regular basis when we're working with students like Cam. This is the Fulbright US Student website, and Cam might have come into our office and talk with us about some of the things that they bring to the table, independent research experiences, internship experiences, language skills, and let's just say Cam right now has advanced Spanish language skills. So we're going to start exploring what's available on the Fulbright website as it relates to things that can be applicable to Cam's competitive factor right now. So one of the places we go right away is to the country summary pages. So a question came in earlier about where do I access information about my country? This is where we go. We come to a picture of a map of the world in which there are Fulbright opportunities, and we're going to search right now at Spain. We're going to look at Spain. Cam has advanced language skills, so we're going to look at Spain as a primary example of what's available in country. We've navigated to Spain's award summary page, and here you see all the number of awards available to Spain. 165 ETAs, are you kidding me? But we'll save that for Thursday. Right now, we're going to look at the Open Study Research Awards, and here's where we expect our students to do a lot of work. Christine and I are not going to be the experts here, but we will expect you to be the expert here, especially once you develop a little bit of focus on what countries you're interested in. I always talk with students about developing a short list. And in that short list, I want them to have considered what's available. Spain will talk about the award profile. And here's they'll give a mission statement about what their grants will support. They'll talk about the grant period, a 9-month grant period. So if Cam's going to put together a year-long project, I'm going to say, Cam, you didn't do your research. Spain says that they're only going to fund 9 months. You have to come back with a new timeline. Things like this. One of the questions earlier, what was the foreign language requirement from the country I'm interested in? They will tell you. And here's important information about that here, the foreign language proficiency. Every country that has a research grant will tell you what their expectation on your language acquisition and usage is. They'll talk to you whether or not there's a graduate degree enrollment. In this particular case, for this particular award, Spain says you can apply for the graduate degree enrollment. There's a couple of other opportunities in Spain's country summary that we mentioned on the page before that you could look at. And here's some other information, some extra information, affiliation. This is what they expect you to have for your affiliation letters, your affiliation commitments, and they give you help. Other things that you'll need to look at. A question came in earlier, what if I have dual citizenship? Here's one. Spain says that you're not eligible for a Fulbright grant in Spain if you hold Spanish citizenship. So you want to pay attention to this. And again, when a student comes in, when Cam comes in with their short list, I will have expected Cam to spend a lot of attention on the award summary page. Another way to compare what's available, Cam has advanced Spanish language skills. I'll say, what other interests might you have? Cam says, well, I also have interest in South America. Well, we'll come to the statistics page, which was up here on the right-hand corner. You'll click through there, and here's a chance for you to look through all the grants that have been made from the Fulbright program since inception. Sometimes they're more helpful than others. And we can see what Spain has funded over the last few years as it relates to the study research project. So I've filtered for Europe, and I've filtered for study research. And here we see over the last 3 years how many applications have been made and how many awards have been granted. And Spain, we'll see as an average, is giving about 22% of applications of Fulbright grants for the Open Study Research Award. So your chances are 22%. I might ask Cam to compare what Spain is doing to what, I already filtered for the Western Hemisphere, for what Chile is doing. Chile has the second number of highest awards available in the study research section for Spanish-speaking South America at 8. And over the last few years, they're averaging 27%. So that might not seem like a lot, but 1 in 3 might be a little bit better than 1 in 4. So this is something for CAM to consider. CAM might have interest in Chile as well as having interest in Spain. CAM might also have a goal. One of the questions that came earlier was, how do I decide between an ETA or a research grant? I always say, what are your goals? If one of the goals might be, I want to go to South America. I want to have a different kind of adventure. I want to be able to utilize my language skills. And I say, well, how tied are you, Cam, to your Spanish? Are you interested in other Romance languages? They might say, yeah, I've considered Italian, I've considered Portuguese. Aha, Portuguese. Well, I wanted to just show Cam that in Brazil, they are offering 53 awards. And if we went to the country summary page and checked out Brazil, they'll say that if you do not have Portuguese but have advanced language skills in Spanish, you can apply for a degree, or you can apply for a research grant to Brazil with some ways to put Portuguese in between now and grant time. So it's just something I would want CAM to consider. If one of their goals is to get to South America, this might be an opportunity. This might be a vehicle. Right now, Brazil is giving upwards of 47%. I think that's what I've written down in terms of the applications. So just something to throw in there. Another tool that we utilize to help CAM out is to go to the grantee directory, which is just underneath statistics. The grantee directory under the Fulbright US Student Program allows you to search for all the countries that are offering awards. You too can filter these. I don't need to show you how to do these too much, do I? You can filter by Spain, and then you can filter by the discipline that you might be searching for. So let's look at archaeology in Spain. We'll search. And here we'll see that people have been winning archaeological awards to Spain. If we click on their names, they'll even give us sometimes the proposal summary or title. So this might help us kind of think about, how to phrase and pitch certain research project ideas, and also not to duplicate. So this is going to help us in project design as well. Another page that Christine and I utilize, so this is what's available on the Fulbright US Student Program website. There's a lot of information here, but here's some of the ways that can help you kind of really anchor your research project. Other things to look at that we utilize frequently, we go to the State Department. Remember that the Fulbright program is a US State Department funded opportunity. So it pays to know what the US Department of State thinks about the country and what the country might think about the United States. We go to the bilateral relations fact sheets here at state.gov, and we can look at the relations that the particular countries have with the United States. We'll look at Spain. We'll see what it says about Spain. Again, you all can figure this out. But it's helpful to look. I keep passing it, don't I? There we go.
Oh, that alphabetical order.
US fact sheets with Spain. And we'll take a look at what's happening between the two. And this is the context, the background by which CAM's research proposal is sitting. So something to pay attention to. Also, we had questions earlier about affiliations. How do I develop affiliations? Of course, we would invite CAM to work with their advisors, their professors at our respective colleges who might have interests, research interests, and expertise in those countries. Those folks were graduate students once too. Those folks have been teaching in the field for a while and might have colleagues in those countries. So we'd encourage CAM to investigate those networks. Also, the US Fulbright umbrella is a very large program. There are scholars from the United States that go abroad, and there are scholars from abroad that come to the United States. You can come to the Fulbright Scholar Program website at cies.org, and you can look at the Fulbright Scholar Directory. This might be a good way for CAM to develop, or at least investigate, what networks might be available to them in Spain by looking at program country, Spain. We're searching for non-US visiting scholar. And now we have a chance to look at all the folks from Spain who are coming to the United States, or who have been in the United States and know a little bit about the Fulbright program and might be receptive to CAM's inquiry about how do I create a network of affiliation in this country. So these are tools that we like to use when working with CAM to develop the research project.
So what you just saw live is also captured in these still slides, which will be available to you after the webinar is over. We're down to actually no minutes left. However, if you can hang with us for just a couple of more minutes, we'll wrap up. And then if you can stay a little bit longer, we're happy to answer those remaining questions. This is just a quick review of what's involved in the Fulbright application itself. After you've designed your project, you're going to have to spill it out onto a page, actually an online application. And there are two features of that we just want to point to right now. One is the essay, the statement of grant purpose that Ryan alluded to before, a two-page essay in which you describe your project aim, your methodology, how it's feasible for you, how you're equipped to do it, how it connects to the host country, and how it relates to the Fulbright mission. So all of this research you do over the summer will be spilled out into there. And then another piece that goes into it is that affiliation letter, that affirmation from someone in the destination country saying, yes, we want this person to come. There's a lot more information about all of the components of the application on both of our websites, as well as the Fulbright website. But this is where all your hard work will be displayed and articulated. And then I know many of you are curious about the timeline, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So one of the things that I like to mention to our students, and I know Christine does too, is the way in which your application becomes a grant. There's a number of steps in the process. We're working with students all the time to pitch their project ideas to two sort of sets of reviewers. The first is the in-country United States group of scholars who are experts in the field or in the region or the country. And so to do that, we have internal deadlines. We have wait, my cat now is visiting. We're trying to get your applications into our offices early so that you can gain sometimes the expertise of faculty members at our respective colleges to provide some feedback and oftentimes some help with your applications. So there are deadlines that are earlier so that we can do that. And then also when your applications are made, they'll go to a group of United States scholars, usually over the winter time. If that grant or if that proposal is qualifies, it'll move on to review in the country itself. So there's all these levels of competition, and we have internal processes in order to help you meet that competition.
Okay, so after you do all of that and you put this project together and you actually submit it on or before October 13th, what are you going to do? You're going to celebrate. You're going to celebrate the accomplishment that you had in thinking this through, all this reflective work, all of this research, and then putting it all together in a tidy application for the reviewers to review. And we'll celebrate with you. And hopefully, eventually we'll also be celebrating your having gotten the grant. And we would look forward to that. And if you don't, helping you put this whole thing in context of whatever else you plan to do with your life. We are at the end of our time, and we hope that you found this informative and interesting. We can stay on for 10 or 15 more minutes to answer those questions. We understand that some of you do have to leave, but remember where you can get in touch with both of us on our websites. Did you want to say any final words, Ryan?
Also, we had some, I answered them directly. Questions about, is this webinar going to be available online? Yes, we have recorded it. We will share it. Invite you all to write us. We're going to have, in Mount Holyoke, we're going to have a specific area where it will be available. It will also be accessible. It'll take us a little bit of time to transcribe it, but we will have that available both in its raw form and then also in its accessible form as well.
So to those of you who have to leave, thank you for coming, and we'll say goodbye to you. For those of you who can stay and would like to hear answers to the questions, we'll move right along.